Hello, everybody. So, the next installment, or book two of The Ranger's Apprentice, called The Brain Bridge, starts off exactly where, uh, well, not exactly, but a few months after the events of the first book. So, Will and Holt are already going on missions and they're being assigned different activities. He's still continuing his training. After all, he only has his bronze oakleaf, which just kind of a reminder means that he's part of the Ranger Corps. He's considered a Ranger, not an apprentice anymore, but he's on the next level, which is like a Ranger in training. So at the very start, we have Gilan coming back, and he lets them know that they have a mission from Crowley, who is kind of like the Ranger, head Ranger, you could say. He's the one who is coordinating the different activities that they do, and of course, he's also the one that assigns the Rangers to their own fiefs or their own little kingdoms where they have to supervise and do their roles. There's only one Ranger per fief. In case I didn't make that clear on the first two parts of book one. So when they are given the mission, Halt is not able to actually do the mission because he's assigned elsewhere. And as Crowley puts it, he can't spare any more Rangers because, after all, from book one, we grow to know that Morgoth, who is the kind of like the main villain, he is planning to newly attack the kingdoms, and he is kind of like they have to stop him, and so the creatures that I had previously mentioned, wargos, they are very interesting creatures in the sense that they are single tracked. So once they have an order, they will follow it until the very end or until they pass away, until they die. And how this happens is Morgoth has this control on them. It's not really clear how that happens, but in essence, with his own mind, with his own thoughts, he can control what the Wargos are doing and what they are going to do, which makes them fierce warriors because they won't fear. Because once they're tracked on, you have to kill this or you have to fight, they'll do so, and that won't be an issue. Now, they had tracked 4 Wargos in the kingdom, and Will, along with Halt, wait about the name, they were in charge of kind of tracking these 4 Wargos, and this is before Gilan comes in. So they know that there's already some movement going on. Other than the Calcata, there is also some movement, and this leads them to kind of investigate what they're up to. And when they find these 4 Wargos, and they have a confrontation, they die, and in this confrontation, Will, he kind of grows this. He begins to lose faith in his abilities. He misses quite a few shots when he's shooting the Wargos that are running up to them. Fortunately, Halt was able to stop the Wargos before one could even get close to Will. But he, despite standing his ground and shooting at the Wargos, he still missed, and he still has that sense of he's a failure, that maybe he doesn't deserve to be a ranger. And it's very much, I wouldn't call it imposter syndrome necessarily, because he knows what he can do, but he does lose faith in his own abilities, that maybe as things are getting progressively worse, and he realizes that, well, they are now in a state of maybe not war, but they're headed towards war. And so as they are getting closer and closer to starting this war with Morgoth, he his responsibilities as a ranger are going to only increase, and everything he does is going to affect the kingdom, and the kingdom is going to depend on him, even though he is barely in training. But as a ranger, along with Holt, there's a lot that's expected, and there's a lot that is on their shoulders. Sorry, misspoke. So when Gillen comes around, Will had is still losing faith. Well, not losing faith, but he still has that hesitation that if he is even meant to be a ranger. And so Gilan's idea was to take Will with him, along with another companion, so that as a party of three, they can go and what essentially their task is to go to the other kingdoms up to the north and and kind of claim the treaty that was made, where the three kingdoms up in the north would join with their armies to fight against Morgoth whenever he showed up and whenever there was a need. And the reason why three is actually an interesting one. I know I'm kind of delaying the whole uh, review and going like step by step, but it's kind of interesting because apparently they're they're kind of their thinking. One might be lying and maybe a deceit. Two are probably planning something, and three, well, you can trust when it's a three person when there's three people, and that's kind of what happens. They're going to go as a party of three, and Gilan's idea, well, more like Holt's idea, is to take is for Gilan to take Horace as well. As you recall, Horace and Will are now very good friends, and him being in the battle school, he is also becoming a much stronger warrior, and he's pretty skilled as well. But the thinking is, well, you have Horace, who is around Will's age, and they're friends. You you have them both go together to complete this mission, as simple as it is. But first of all, you're keeping Will away from mostly like war goals and all this like planning for war and the strategies that are being made and all that. So that's stress off his shoulders in that end. But then there's also the fact that he's going to be around somebody his own age. So again, he might be 15 or 16, but he's still a kid. I mean, as much as you want to say when you're in high school, oh, I'm an adult. Well, you're not. And it part of being a teenager and as well as being a child, and a part of everything is that you want to have fun and you mess around, you and all of that. And it's good for Will to be around somebody his own age who he can joke around with, and even there's things that can only be done with somebody else around your age. As much as you love your parents or you respect your teachers or anybody who might be older than you, it's not the same type of relationship as when you're with a peer. But anyway, they head out on their task up in the north, and they find out that something's not right. And what they notice is that the post and where there should be guards, there isn't. The villages are empty, and everything seems to be as if it were abandoned for not as in the day or two, but it has been a little bit since somebody was last there in these locations. And not just that, they left without any preparations. Gillen kind of notes that usually they are pretty clean and organized, and everything is in disarray. There's things all over the place. There's broken jars and all of this. So it was really rushed. Something might have happened, but they don't have anybody to actually ask because there's nobody around. And as it turns out, they do find this girl, um, more or less around, Will's and Horace's age, and she explained about what happened up in the north is that the Wargos had been coming down from the mountains and had basically moved everybody out into this far corner where they wouldn't be able to call for help, and they wouldn't be able to send help to the other kingdoms further down south. Not just that, but she had been hiding, which is why she was starved, and didn't want to go close to the towns and villages in case there were Wargos and not just wargos, but also opportunistic people, such as raiders or um, people who mug others. That type of thing. She wanted to avoid the people and the wargos who could harm her. And she, as she describes it, when she was attacked, she was a maid for one of the ladies that was going to visit a friend until they were attacked, and she barely made it out with her own life. And so the plan then stands as, well, Gilan. Well, somebody has to tell the king that they're not going to be getting reinforcements and that there's something going on, and that's what happens. I should further note that, coming backtracking, when Will and Holt had that confrontation with the Wargos, with the four Wargos that they found, there was also another man who had a map, and apparently it was a map with instructions on what attack they were going to be doing. And so, based on this new information, that's what they were strategizing. And so that entailed that there was this kind of like very narrow pass from the mountains that was part of Margaret's kingdom, and that crosses over this chasm. It crosses over this chasm that separates the lands where Morgoth is and the lands of the north. And through that kind of bridge or that path, that's where they were going to be sending an attack. And based on this, that's why they also wanted to recruit the kingdoms from the north, the armies. So, going back, since there wasn't going to be any armies that were going to be coming to help the king, and it's just not just the king, but also Baron Arnold and Sir Rodney and all these other kingdoms. But somebody has to say something. They have to spread that information so that they know that they're not going to be getting help anytime soon, because they're engaged. It's not that they don't want to send people. And so Gilan says, we'll split up. Will, you're going to be in charge. You can do it. I know you can. I'm going to go let the king know, and you are going to continue you're going to continue on this path where you're going to meet up with us over at that cross where the attack is going to be. And on your way, you can drop off Evalyn, which is the name of this lady that they found. And so that's what they proceed to do. However, on their way, Will finds out that there are warlords behind them. Not that they were chasing them, but they're on that same trail. And when he kind of goes to the side and keeps everybody hidden, both Horace and Evalyn, he notices that they are taking slaves somewhere. The slaves are the people that they recruited from the mines. Mines, they are in the north. But then the question rose, why do they have the miners? What are they doing with them? What is their plan? So from being split up and I'll meet you later over there, it began a mission for him. He felt that it was his duty to find out what else is going on, to get that information, that it was something that Holt would do. And he does. He gets to where the Wargos went, and he notices that there's this bridge being built between the lands where Morgoth is and the land of the north. It wasn't exactly that same bridge where allegedly there was going to be attack. It was farther away from that. And they noticed that this bridge was almost finished, and that the slaves, the miners, they were being used to make that bridge, as well as making a tunnel wider, which went from inside the mountain, the valley, straight over to that tiny bridge. And because nobody was any wiser, now you can imagine, you have a wide tunnel where an army along with other supplies and everything else, can go through. And then you have this bridge where they can cross. And since nobody knows that they're there, it is a surprise attack. Not just that, but Morgoth has also recruited Vikings. Okay, I say Vikings, but their name are Scandians. But if you read the description, they say their helmets with the horns. They're big, burly, and then they can get into this like fight frenzy or berserk mode where they no longer feel any pain, but they just start fighting viciously. And so basically, the Vikings, if for all sense and purposes. They had also he had also recruited these Scandians to join them in their attack. So not just they were going to be attacked on head on from where the bridge is, they're also going to be attacked from where this other smaller bridge was. They're going to be attacked by this small swamp area that is also around that area where they're going to be, where the troops are going to be. So they're going to be attacked on 3 fronts, which is pretty bad because if you think of it this way, you have one person, you have another one in front of them, but then you have another 2 that come from behind or from the sides, I should say. Then you're trapping them, and that's the type of situation you want to avoid, especially when you're in a state of war. You don't want to leave yourself that vulnerable, especially if you don't know that these other ambushes that are going to be coming in. And so, while discovering this, there are 2 options: run out and let them know, or stay and do what you can do to kind of delay this type of thing. Well, the bridge was about to be done, and so Will, along with Horace and Evalyn, who didn't want to leave him, they wanted to help him out. They decided to stay to burn the bridge. That way, they wouldn't be able to cross over. Well, they would still be able to, but it would take longer because now they have to rebuild the bridge. So it wasn't going to be as easy as them coming through that front. And then proceed to go over and let them know. And so when Will starts burning the bridge, one side of the bridge doesn't burn, and he stays behind in order to burn it. Evalyn crosses over, tries to help him out, and they are able to successfully burn the bridge. But by that time, Horace being already on the other side, the Scandians and the Wargos were already aware. So they come out, and because Scandians are much more agile than Wargos, no matter how hard he is, how good Will is at shooting his arrows, they don't seem to hit the Scandians. So when Will is confronted with these Scandians, they're coming closer and closer, and they don't make it on time. Will and Evalyn, they don't make it across the bridge. Scandians get a hold of them, and now they're their prisoners, in all essence. And they are taken along the ride. Will gets recognized as a ranger, as I believe his name is Eric. He's basically like a captain. Their title is a jar, Jarl, a jar. So he is the leader in that little troop, that small troop that they have. He decides to protect them from the Wargos because, as he noted to Will, if he leads them to the Wargos, most likely they're going to be eaten, the both of them. And so it's very strange when you think about it, because they're supposed to be enemies, and he has shot down a few of his comrades. However, he respects him because he sees how he stands his ground, and even being surrounded by enemies, Will still stands his ground. And so one of the things that he does is that they had knocked him out by throwing a rock at him. That's how he lost consciousness over at the bridge. And so when he wakes up and they tell him, well, can you walk? Yes, I can walk on my own. And so he admires that he, despite not being in that position of power, he still is he still has the courage to kind of stand up to them. And to him that is important. But also it's kind of weird because it's not that he has any, and that goes for all the Scandians as well. It's not that they have any ill will towards the people of the kingdoms. It's just that that's how they were raised, and that's kind of like part of what they do. So they don't see it as something that's mal. They don't see it as an ill intention. It's just that's what Vikings do. That's what Scandians do. And so as they go to that point where they're going to have that battle, or where they're going to start the war along with Morgoth, um, Will gets to see Morgoth for the first time, and he is tall, but also very menacing. It even he even creeps out the Scandians a bit. But when they are over at where the battle is going to begin, or not knowing obviously that, well, he knows that the plan failed for that smaller bridge. The Scandians are kept close together, and Eric, the leader of that small group, decides that it's not worth being there. It's not worth fighting that battle because they were promised that they'll be able to raid. Again, that's what Vikings do. So rather than fight, possibly lose lives and all for nothing, he says, well, at our first opportunity, we're going to run away through the swamps, get to the ship, and get out of here. And that's kind of what happens during the commotion of the battle. They run over to the swamp and they head out to the open sea. Now, Horace does also make it over to the camp, with Sir Rodney and Baron Errol, Halt, with the king. So with where they were going to start the battle, Horace did make it, and he reveals what the plan is. So he reveals about the attack from the swamp, the attack from the other bridge, which is now destroyed, and he explains everything. And then when they're out in the battle, Halt had this idea where basically the troops that were going to come from the swamp, he's going to meet them, defeat them, use their armor, and then pretend, since they're going to be far enough away, pretend that they were the Scandians, so that Morgoth can grow overconfident and not suspect that they knew what his plan was. And that's exactly what happens. During the battle, they pretended that they were fighting the main army with Holt's group pretending to be Scandians. And in that moment, that's when they open up and let the cavalry out to defeat the Wargos. And in case I didn't mention it, Wargos do have one great fear. Just like the Calcara feared fire, Wargos feared horses for some reason. And so, well, they did a barrage of wave after wave of the cavalry. One wave would go and kind of hit them over, spread out. The second wave would come in, and by the time that the second wave was ready to disperse, the next wave was ready. So as they dispersed, they would regroup and be ready to go in another wave. And so it was a very good strategy. I actually like that. And here comes the part where Morgoth, seeing that he's going to be defeated, decides to challenge them on a one-on-one combat. And he wants to challenge Halt. Now, there is this small debate where Halt is not a knight, so the king doesn't want him to fight, but Halt is also kind of upset because of the whole situation with Will, so he wants to also do his part and everything. But what they didn't expect is for Horace to also kind of be annoyed. So Horace does this thing where he throws a gauntlet at Morgoth and challenges him. Seeing that Horace is a boy, he decides, you know what, I'll accept your challenge and then I'll kill Halt. And well, it wasn't as easy. They do end up both on the ground during the combat, during that small fight. Morgoth does knock Horace down from his horse, and he now has the advantage. But Horace does this maneuver, which is dangerous, and it's probably from which he gets his. Let's say that the horse does much more damage to him than Morgoth actually does to him. I'll explain. He basically rolls it at the foot, at the hoofs of the horse. That makes the horse trip, falls down, but also the horse kicks him. And when Morgoth stands up, that's when he fights him sword to sword. Horace wins, and there you go. He killed Morgoth. And of course, because he killed Morgoth and there's no longer that mental link to the Wargos have no idea what to do, so they just disperse. And it is in that confusion where everybody starts running away, including the Scandians, who had already started running away by the time that Horace had challenged Morgoth to battle. And so Halt notices that the Scandians had headed towards the swamp. He rides over and he barely makes it to the beach by the time that they're already on the boat. And as they're sailing away, he shoots his arrows, doesn't make it. He does get to hit a few Scandians, but eventually they're too far away, and now Will and Evalyn are, well, they're on a boat. And they're on their way to Scandia. So we'll see what happens in the next installment. Now, I do kind of appreciate how Will, despite having this imposter syndrome, he does fulfill his duties. So he does realize what he has to do. And rather than just go with his fears, he focuses on what has to be done, the importance that it is for other lives, not just his own, but for the lives of Halt, Gilan, the Rangers, the kingdoms, the people, the farmers. So he realizes that he has to do something about that, and he does. And the strategies that they come up with, such as burning the bridge, heading over to let them know, Halt attacking the group at the swamp and then pretending to be them as a misdirection. I mean, all these are very impressive strategies that I've never read about, and it still continues on with a great story. It's not the end of the whole Halt Will saga. I mean, we still have another 2 books until we get them back together, and I might be spoiling it that a bit, but all in all, I did enjoy reading that book, and I enjoyed reading it again for this little recording. So let me know if you've read the book. Let me know if you have any thoughts about it. If you have any predictions, if you haven't read it, I don't know. Just feel free to leave your comments and engage in any way possible. Also, let me know how I'm doing with these videos, because I feel like I'm learning a little bit, and I'm trying to improve them. But I still need help. I still need to figure out what I'm doing over here. Alright, well, see you soon.